are you?
Good.
Hey, Patty, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Linda.
Hello.
Looks like we're going to be, at least for another 2 weeks, according to Judge Jenkins, going to be sheltered at home. So maybe later this month we'll be able to venture out for those that want to venture out.
Well, you know, I know that LaCima is going to start like just a few hours a day, and they have all these precautions. I think next week they're going to start. So I hope that, you know, since they're owned by the same company, that the country club will start doing that on a very limited basis.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Is that Laura? Yeah.
Hey, Laura.
Hello.
Laura,
Can you turn yourself?
turn your cell phone in the other direction. There you go. Man.
Yay!
Interesting how you could stand sideways.
Now she gone.
Don't get rid of the video. We were enjoying looking at your lake view there and back.
That was a great view.
Yeah, we might want to move Rotary to your deck next week.
No kidding. There she is.
Lazaro, we're glad you're there. There you
Hi,
are.
Lazara.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Like that Irving marathon background there.
Thank
That's
you.
excellent. I did the 5-1 and the 10K one this month. With
Oh,
my
wow.
trail.
It's awesome.
2 little medals going.
Yay, Lauren.
Hey, that's great.
Uh-oh. There's Nicole joining us.
Hey, Nicole.
Hi, Nicole.
I was just going to message Magna and see if she was sending a designate, and there you are.
Yay.
You probably said you make sure you're there before noon. So,
Yes, sir.
all right.
And you are.
Punctuality award. Now, Laura, is that a virtual background or is that what you wake up to every morning?
No, this is my backyard.
Oh,
Nice.
Now you can see. Now you can see why I don't mind commuting.
yeah.
I get to come home to the lake. It's all good.
That's a beautiful commute.
Thank you. Yeah, it's such a beautiful day. I was like, I'm sitting outside today.
There you go.
Good.
All right, Laura, you're going to have to talk well to keep our attention, because otherwise we're just going to be watching Lori's backyard. So
That's beautiful.
Let me
Yeah, that's
show you around. Hold on. Let me see if I can flip. No, I don't know how to flip. So
Oh,
there it is, and then it goes that way.
Very pretty.
nice. Very nice.
Okay, beach party next week.
Oh,
Hey.
fun.
Rotary
Pool party.
Meetings. Come
Hey,
on.
Chris.
I'm going to step away and let you visit for just a moment. I'll be right back.
What has John Van Buren got up there?
If you look closely, you'll see a lot of birds, and I'm telling you, this virus is for the birds.
Hey, I'm the perfect straight man for you, aren't I?
I appreciate it.
And glasses look temporary. All
Ellie
right.
wants to say hi.
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 Hi. Wow.
We'll just take your dog to Rotary Day. I'll call mine in here in a minute.
You know, she used to be she was in training for Canine Companion dog.
Oh.
And so she was raised by inmates at the prison, and I was her weekend raiser because they obviously can't do the socialization portion of it. So
Yeah.
I would get her on Fridays and take her to restaurants and stores and everything, and then take her back on Monday on my way back to work. And when she got turned in for formal training, she had never seen a cat before.
Oh.
And she was obsessed with the cat, and they said even if the cat wasn't around, she'd stare at the building the cat lived in.
Oh,
So
dear.
those dogs have to be focused 100% of the time. So she got released, and I got first dibs on adopting her. So
Good for you.
amazing. She knows 42 commands, and she's really good, and
Oh.
it's been great. She hates the water though, which
Oh.
we thought, we're getting a lab, they would love the water, but she hates it.
Oh.
You just got to watch that obsession with cats. I'm telling you, Laurie and I know about cats, don't we?
And I call them my coworkers. I'm hoping they're not going to interrupt in the presentation. They're kind of unmanageable. They may have to have a disciplinary session.
Yeah.
And she never attacked the cat. She was just interested in what it was. She just didn't know. So.
Interesting.
I had a Labrador as a child that adopted a chicken from one of the neighbors.
Oh, nice.
Brought it home, and my father took it back, and then the dog would bring it home again. So he went back down and he said, "Give me a chicken. I'm going to bring it to the dog, so the dog will have his chicken." He brought the wrong one, and the dog didn't want it.
Oh, well.
Well, we have others that are trying to get on here. I see Neil Davidson. Neil and Sandra, are you guys there?
Yes, can you hear us?
We can hear you vaguely. You may want to turn your sound up just a little bit.
Okay.
Are you going to be able to lead us in song today?
I don't think so. I'm trying to turn the system up, and I'm not finding. There we go.
Mike Kunzat just joined us. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Somebody have a bird?
Sounds like it.
That's my crow in my
The ones
backyard.
at the beach.
Christine, are you at the animal exhibit at the zoo and the birds are chirping at us, or
It's the crow that lives in the tree.
the crows?
Is that any better, Robert?
Yeah, it's much better. Thank you, sir.
All right. This is like signing in and getting everything.
Thank you so much for your help there.
Can you hear me now, Robert?
Yeah, yes, Mike, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Look forward to the meeting.
Yes, we're glad to have you. Let me just tell you, we have all of our programs confirmed for the month of May. And I know that May 7th and May 14th will both be virtual meetings. I'm still waiting to hear from the country club on May 21st and May 28th. So, and even when we start going to the country club, I've already had a few members that have told me they're not sure they're going to return immediately. So we will be doing a Zoom meeting and Facebook Live when we go back to the club. So if you watch Facebook Live, you can watch it but not interact. We will have, we'll try to see if we can get a big screen TV and a laptop computer. So we'll use the laptop's camera, but we'll project it on a big screen TV, so we'll be able to see and even hear from any of those that want to join us virtually. So we want to keep everybody connected until we're all ready to meet back together again soon. All right.
That's fantastic. Thanks for doing that, y'all. That's really going to be great.
Well, Lori, we're trying to lead the district, use our technology
awesome.
as best we
Yeah.
can. And so we're grateful for Lori stepping up today to help us with the program. I think that everybody has nominated John to open us in prayer. So John, would you hold your space bar down and lead us in a word of prayer as we start your Irving Los Colinas Rotary Club meeting for Thursday, April 30th.
Now can you hear me?
We were ready. Go ahead, sir.
You join me in prayer, please. Heavenly Father, in this time of uncertainty and difficulty in our world, we ask that your presence be manifested in a mighty way, that this virus will work to your advantage to bring people closer to you, that as people realize that the only source of hope is you. I ask, Father, that you be with our club and be with our community, be with our country, be with this whole world. your love. And continue always to be one great source of hope for all of us. Let's call this in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you, John. Patty Caperton, would you lead us in the pledge? We should have a flag on the screen there.
I have a flag on the screen. Am I unmuted? Yes.
You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Patty brought a flag. Join us in our Rotary song.
R-O-T-A-R-Y, that spells Rotary. R-O-T-A-R-Y is no land and sea. From north to south, from east to west, the prophet most who serves the best. R-O-T-A-R-Y, that spells Rotary.
Good job, everyone. I don't know if you saw that, but Mara even sent us a virtual singing of Rotary until next week. But our program today is a very familiar person, Lori Crider. Lori's the Assistant District Governor. She has served on a lot of boards and committees. That was part of her bio was part of what Mara sent out to you today, but she's going to be doing a program today about Talk Saves Lives. So, Lori, we're going to turn the meeting over to you. Jordan's going to change the program so you won't see everybody's picture up there. You'll probably just see the speaker and the slides, and then we'll come back to gallery review at the end of the meeting. So, Assistant District Governor Lori Crider, welcome. We're glad you're here. Y'all help me clap. Good job, Lori Crider. All right.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with y'all, and I'm really looking forward to when we can all safely be back together in person. But in the meantime, it's nice to be virtually with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to present from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, their program called Talk Saves Lives. The AFSP is the leading organization out there for prevention of suicide, and also providing, I use the acronym RAPS because they provide resources, advocacy, prevention, and support. And so under the prevention area will be the Talk Saves Lives program. So I'm going to share my screen here with the PowerPoint so we can see that. Let's get this going here. There we go. Okay. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. Let's make sure that's not what I wanted. There we go. Suicide is a complex health issue. But despite its complexity, suicide can be prevented. Just like there are warning signs and risk factors for other health crises like cardiac arrest, we can learn the warning signs and risk factors that can help us to prevent people from dying by suicide. As with other health issues, time can be a critical and life-saving measure. Typically, a life can be saved if you allow time for the person's suicide risk to subside or to get through that period of distress and to get mental health help. to prevent suicide, we need to identify persons who may be suicidal, as well as take an active role in connecting them to help before they take action to end their lives. Well, the purpose of Talk Saves Lives is to provide community members with a general overview of what suicide is, who it affects, what we know about it, and what can be done to prevent it. This presentation will cover some statistics to give you an idea of the scope of the problem of suicide. We will review some research findings, including the risk and protective factors that relate to suicide. And we'll talk about what works and what we can all do to prevent this leading cause of death. So how we talk about suicide matters. Before we get started, I want to go over some terminology that is used when we talk about suicide. It is important to model appropriate language so that we do not perpetuate the stigma of suicide or mental health conditions. So a baseline on the language of this topic is we avoid using the phrase committed suicide because it can have a negative connotation. Instead, we encourage phrases like died by suicide, ended his or her life, or killed himself or herself. When talking about suicide and suicide attempts, we avoid referring to suicide attempts as failed or successful. Not only is it unnecessary, these words imply judgment. Instead, we encourage the use of phrases such as a suicide attempt, suicide, or death by suicide. Educating the public about suicide is critical for encouraging help seeking, raising awareness of risk in vulnerable populations, and advocating for new interventions and prevention strategies for those at risk. When suicide is talked about safely and accurately, we can help reduce the likelihood of its occurrence. We want to change how society understands mental health and suicide because we open up and connect. Talk Saves Lives. So the scope of the problem, suicide is a significant issue that affects individuals, families, and communities worldwide. So let's start with some statistics that demonstrate the scope of the problem. Suicide is a global problem. According to the World Health Organization, each year over 800,000 people die by suicide worldwide. And while this is the most accurate data that we have, we estimate the numbers to be higher because it's likely that suicide is underreported in many countries. It's also underreported, they think, in the military. So that works out to a suicide every 40 seconds worldwide. So in the United States, suicide rates are recorded by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. This slide indicates numbers from 2016, but I do have updated information from 2017, and unfortunately that number is over 47,000 now. So it makes suicide the 10th leading cause of death. Suicide takes more lives in the United States than homicide, war, and natural disasters combined. These numbers are one of many reasons that it's important to talk about suicide like any other illness. The more we talk, the less stigmatized the topic of suicide becomes. For every death by suicide, it's estimated that 25 others attempt. That's about 1 million Americans each year who survive a suicide attempt. When you think about any loss, it impacts many people in the community. Suicide is no different. The loss affects family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, schools, faith communities, etc. It is estimated that the majority of Americans will experience a suicide loss over the course of their lifetime. But in addition to the devastating toll on families and communities, both emotionally and socially, there's a fiscal impact on our society as well. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that for the year 2016, suicidal behavior, including both suicide attempts and suicide deaths, cost the United States $69 billion, cost due primarily to lost wages and productivity. So let's move on to research. Only in the past several decades have scientists been studying suicide. Research is shedding light on many critical areas, and we still have more to learn. This section provides an overview of suicide prevention research, key research findings, and future goals in the field. Research has consistently shown that the large majority of people who die by suicide have a mental health condition at the time of their death. It may or may not have been diagnosed or adequately treated. That said, research has also made clear that mental health conditions cannot be the whole story. Mental health conditions are common, and the vast majority of people who suffer from these illnesses do not die by suicide. In addition to mental health conditions, there are many other factors that increase risk as well. We've learned that the brains of people who die by suicide differ from those who die from other causes in terms of structure and function, specifically in the areas related to stress response and impulse control. We've also learned that most people who are suicidal are ambivalent about taking their life. Part of them wants to live, part of them wants to die. This research has informed key strategies in suicide prevention that involve engaging the part of the person that wants to stay alive and helping to create distance from the part of them that wants to die. One way that we do that is help the person connect with reasons for living, while at the same time decreasing the visibility and presence of things around them that may facilitate their desire to die. One of the many important things we have learned from research is about the perspective of a suicidal person, that a crisis point has been reached. For a suicidal person, the pain seems unbearable, whether it's emotional pain, physical pain, or sometimes both. So for a moment, I'd like you to think back to the most physically painful experience of your life. Might have been a broken bone, childbirth, a kidney stone, whatever that would be. But at that point, would you have been able to give someone clear and accurate directions to your house? Probably not. The pain makes ordinary thinking nearly impossible. For a suicidal person, thinking becomes constricted at that moment of crisis, a state of intense tunnel vision where other options seem unavailable. Someone who considers suicide cannot foresee a time when that unbearable pain will end. Research has also helped determine the key factors that increase the risk for suicide. So risk factors are defined as characteristics or conditions that increase the chance a person may take their life. Risk factors are important to know to understand the big picture of someone who is considering suicide. Just like someone who is at risk for heart disease because of high blood pressure or a history of heart disease in the family, some people are at higher risk for suicide than others. The main risk factors, which are shown here, can be grouped into three categories: health factors, historical factors, and environmental factors. These risk factors can converge at different times in life and increase a person's risk for suicidal behavior at particular points in time. So let's look a little bit closer. The first type of risk factor include health factors such as biological and psychological medical conditions, the most significant of which are mental health conditions. As I said before, most people who die by suicide have an active mental health problem at the time of their death. Depression is the most common mental health condition and the one that is most associated with suicide. Bipolar is also shown to be high risk, although the disorder is less common than depression. Because these conditions put a person at greater risk for suicide, detecting the presence of a mental health condition is critically important. The best way to be sure when you feel concerned or detect a possible change in you or your loved one's mental health is for the person at risk to seek a professional evaluation and effective treatment. Many people may not realize their distress has actually become a health problem. Providing information such as a crisis number or mental health resource to someone who is struggling can be a solid step in helping them connect to the help they need. We will talk more about that later in the discussion when we directly address prevention. So historical factors can include family history of suicide, family history of mental health conditions, childhood abuse, previous suicide attempts. Environmental factors include access to lethal means, exposure, contagion, prolonged stress, successful or stressful life events. So to better understand suicide risk, here is an example of a set of risk factors that could converge in a person who is suicidal. This example shows what is often the public perception of suicide. When someone dies by suicide, often the story only talks about the environmental factors. People see a life event like a breakup, bullying, or a job loss, and then they see the person die by suicide, so they might assume the person killed themselves because of that stressful life event. But that's never the full story. What others don't know is that the person who died may have had genetic risk factors for suicide. Maybe they were suffering depression and anxiety disorders, and their work life had become increasingly stressful. Their underlying depression and anxiety could have made the situation at work even worse, or the work stress could have made their depression worse. Because they'd been perhaps they'd been drinking more than normal too, which alcohol is a depressant in and of itself. So the key is that the combination of risk factors could have contributed to the suicide death. So looking to the future, research will help us find the best ways to fight suicide. Research is looking for biomarkers, for example, something testable in a blood sample that would help us to identify those at risk. A number of clinical treatments, like particular types of therapy, are effective for suicidal people, and more need to be developed and studied. The good news is that through research, we are learning more and more about what helps those who are in a suicidal crisis. Research can also help us identify the most effective interventions to reduce suicide rates and to reduce risk in those suffering from mental health conditions. Now that we have a better understanding of the scope of the problem of suicide and the key research findings, including risk factors, this next section is going to focus on prevention. We will discuss the different types of protective factors with a focus on mental health, the importance of engaging in self-care, the need to provide support for suicide loss survivors and those with lived experience, and the critical prevention strategy of limiting access to lethal means. So just like there are risk factors that increase a person's risk for suicide, there are also protective factors that lower a person's risk. If you are proactive about mental health and make an effort to get healthier, you protect yourself. More on this in a moment. Feeling connected to family and community support can protect against suicide. When someone is struggling with depression, anxiety, psychosis, or substance abuse, these protective factors that may normally be strong can erode and temporarily weaken. When that happens, having friends and family to remind us of our strengths can be a tremendous protective factor. Also, Rotary, having our Rotary clubs can be a huge protective factor. Problem-solving skills can also help. Life can get really tough, but being able to see a way through problems can be a protective factor. Cultural and religious beliefs that encourage connecting and help seeking, discourage suicidal behavior, or create a strong sense of purpose can also be a protective factor. Because mental health care is so important for preventing suicide, we're going to focus on this topic for the next couple of minutes. Getting effective treatment for mental health conditions like depression or anxiety can prevent suicide. Critical to suicide prevention is getting people connected to mental health treatment. One of the biggest challenges in fighting suicide is getting people to address their mental health in the same way they would for physical health. In fact, of those suffering from a mental health condition, less than half seek treatment. One way to encourage individuals to seek help for their mental health condition is to treat mental health like any other aspect of our health. There are certain times when a person becomes ill, and it's critical to seek a trained professional. We need a culture where everyone knows it's smart to talk about our mental health. Taking care of our mental health is just as important as taking care of physical health. Seeing a mental health professional is a sign of strength, and many are taking that step. The person seeking help should request a thorough evaluation to figure out if there is a mental health condition affecting their life. There are many types of treatment available, like various kinds of psychotherapy and medications. Research has shown that for many people, the combination of psychotherapy and medications tend to be the most helpful. But the most important thing is to find the treatment that works best for the individual. The good news is that advocacy efforts are improving access to mental health services so that more people can get the treatment they need. The law now requires insurance plans to cover mental health services on par with physical health services. If we need mental health services, and 1 out of 4 of us will at some point, we should get treated and get our health back on track faster. Just like people can find strategies that optimize their physical health, people can do the same for their mental health. In addition to professional mental health care, proactive self-care strategies like good sleep habits, exercise, nutrition, and stress management can also play a critical role in protecting mental health and promoting resilience. Prevention efforts also include support for those touched by suicide. The loss of one person to suicide profoundly impacts many. It's important that survivors have the support they need, both to heal and to reduce their own suicide risk. And since those with lived experience, those who have attempted suicide, or who experience suicidal thinking are at increased risk, we need to make sure they have the support they need too. The most important thing you can put between a suicidal person and their way of ending their life is time. Research shows that by temporarily reducing a suicidal person's access to lethal means, we give suicidal individuals time for the intense suicidal risk to diminish, and time for someone to intervene with mental health support and resources. For the majority of people who experience a suicidal crisis, if unable to access their chosen means, even temporarily, they are unlikely to engage in another action to end their life. In most cases, when a suicidal person doesn't have current access to the means that has been on their mind, they don't substitute with another method. Therefore, a clear way to prevent suicide is to limit access to lethal means. So during a period of high risk, the safer the environment is, the better chance a suicidal person has of living through that crisis period. Suicide prevention research has looked at a number of ways to create safer environments. Installing an inexpensive carbon monoxide sensor that would automatically shut off cars if carbon monoxide levels reach unsafe levels would save lives. We've learned through research that installing barriers on bridges deter suicides, and in many cases, bridge barriers actually lowered the suicide rate for the entire region. Restricting access to potentially lethal medication reduces suicides and can be as simple as requiring lethal drugs to be sold in blister packaging. Firearm safety is critical to reducing suicide rates. In the U.S., firearms are used in roughly half of all suicides, making suicide prevention an important part of gun safety education. Now that we've reviewed the key suicide prevention efforts, let's talk about what we can all do to help prevent suicide. It's important to have a caring, supporting conversation with someone you might be worried about to allow them to share what they are experiencing. A conversation is a way to show you care and allows you to gain more information about their level of distress. So let's start by talking about suicide warning signs. Watch for the warning signs in yourself and others. While many of the suicide risk factors we discussed endure over a longer period of time, warning signs are observable signs that signal suicide risk in the near future. It is important to pay attention to both the risk factors discussed earlier and the warning signs we're talking about now. If you see warning signs, reach out to the individuals in your life you're concerned about and reach out to others if you're struggling. It is a strength to seek help. Seek mental health services if you are depressed or if your anxiety regularly interferes with your daily life, and encourage others to do the same. Suicide warning signs are typically displayed in three main ways that we can detect: talk, behavior, and mood. And we'll discuss each one of these ways in a little more detail. Many people who are suicidal talk about it in their lives. This may be directly or indirectly. A person might say it outright, or they might joke about it but take it seriously. Some people say they have no reason to live. Others say things that let you know they may feel trapped, or that they feel like they're a burden to others. Or they might talk about being overwhelmed or being in unbearable pain. Behaviors that are atypical for an individual should also encourage you to speak to the person about what you are noticing. People thinking about suicide can display certain behaviors. There may be an increased use of alcohol or drugs. They may have trouble sleeping, experiencing insomnia, or sleeping too much. They may start acting recklessly. They may withdraw from activities, especially ones that they normally enjoy. They might isolate themselves from family and friends. They might also look for ways to kill themselves, such as searching online for methods or shopping for a firearm. They also might give away prized possessions or show a related behavior, which is reckless spending. People at risk for suicide can display, often quite subtly, any of the following moods: depression, apathy, rage, irritability, impulsivity, humiliation, anxiety. Moods one would expect of someone who feels overwhelmed and desperate. We all have ups and downs in our mood, but when you notice a change that seems uncharacteristic or concerning, it is important to speak to the person about what you are noticing. For example, sudden unexplained happiness can indicate the individual has decided on a plan and is relieved they will no longer be in pain. So that's a lot of things to look for. So to sum it up, look for changes in behavior and trust your instincts. Assume you're the only one who's going to reach out. In too many cases, people talked about their concern for someone amongst themselves, but hesitate to reach out to the person directly. So here's a rule of thumb. If you're wondering if someone is depressed or overly anxious, that's a sure sign you should reach out. And the same goes for you. If you're having suicidal thoughts, that's a sure sign you need to seek help. If you've reached out before, reach out again. The first time the person may not be receptive, keep trying. Try talking to someone else or with a professional. And even if suicide turns out to not be a concern, they may still be in distress, and they may feel comforted and supported just by knowing that you care and are taking the time to listen. So how do you reach out to someone? Talk to them in private. Listen to their story. Express concern and caring. Ask directly about suicidal thoughts. Don't be afraid to ask the question, are you thinking about suicide, or are you thinking about hurting yourself? Encourage them to seek mental health services. In a crisis, take them to help. There are some things to avoid when talking with someone who may be suffering from depression or anxiety. Avoid minimizing their feelings. Those of us who have never experienced major depression literally cannot imagine what it feels like. Avoid trying to convince them life is worth living. If a person is nearing a crisis point, they aren't thinking clearly. Philosophical debates about life being worth living tend not to be helpful. Avoid advice to fix it. If the person's having a heart attack, you wouldn't tell them to start exercising or to eat a healthier diet. If they are in crisis, what they need is to be heard and then led to help. Listen to their story and offer to help them find a health professional. Help them take active steps toward keeping their environment safe. If you think they might make an attempt on their life soon, then stay with them. Do not leave them alone. However, if the situation puts your own safety at risk, leave the area immediately and call 911. Help them remove lethal means or remove themselves from the potentially dangerous area. Escort them to mental health services or an emergency room. Help them call the lifeline or call the lifeline yourself, and a trained counselor will tell you what you should do to help the person in distress. If they don't feel comfortable speaking to a counselor on the phone, they can also text TALK to the crisis text line at 741-741. So now's a great time to pull out your cell phone and enter both of these lines, the lifeline and the text line, because even if you never need it yourself, you may need it for someone else that you come across. So put those in your phone if you have a chance, and I'll send this information to Robert too to send back out through email so you can catch it that way too. Of course, if it's an emergency, such as a suicide in progress, then obviously call 911. Together, we can create a culture that's smart about mental health, will save lives, and vastly improve the lives of many more. Thank you for joining me today and allowing me to present the Talk Saves Lives. It's a simple idea, but it works. April 8th of 2015 was a Wednesday night. Just a little over 5 years ago, my 20-year-old nephew, Jesse, took his life, and we had no idea it was coming. He was still really involved in his church, and that was a Wednesday night, and he was actually at church, and he had been helping the pastor to serve a gentleman who needed some help. So he was in action and doing things, but he didn't talk about his struggle. Clinical depression runs in my family. My grandmother had to be on antidepressant meds until she died in her late 80s a couple of years ago. So there's a long line of it in our family, but he didn't talk about it. We now, as we look back, we can see that he had some sleep issues. We know that serotonin levels can affect suicidal ideation. So he had some sleep issues. He also had some pain issues. So when you think of all those things combining, that I think is what happened with Jesse. And so I try to think, well, rather than why did he do it? What was the thing that triggered? Why didn't he talk about it? So it's important to me to get the word out, to let people know what to be looking for, and just to reduce the stigma out there too, because this could happen to anybody. We've seen it across the board with very famous people that you never expect. It can happen to anybody. And then there's our veteran population. They say it's 22 per day that die by suicide, but they think it's really more than that because it's underreported. So my whole mission in life, I feel like, is to do everything that I can to hopefully keep somebody else from losing their Jesse. So again, thank you. I don't know if we have time for questions. I think I've maybe run over a little bit, but Jordan's got my FSP card. It's got my email, my personal email address, and my cell phone number, personal cell phone number. So you're more than welcome to reach out to me privately if you've got any other questions, want any more information. And again, thank you for allowing me the time to talk with you.
Thank you, Lori. Appreciate the program today. again, it's not a topic that we talk about enough until it comes close to home. So thank you again, Lori. Want to acknowledge, Jordan, will you put the gallery view back up for me? So see if we can get back to that. There we are, because I saw Elaine Free Robinson joined us today. Hey, Elaine, how are you?
Hey, Elaine.
I'm good, Robert. Thank you.
So glad to see, so good to see you, and glad you joined us today.
Thank you. I appreciate the link being available to join. Yeah.
Well,
Thanks.
we will continue to get that out there for everybody. We didn't get through everybody as far as what they want to do when the shelter in place is lifted. I'll try to maybe start a few minutes earlier next week with that, so you can give some thought. I think I caught some of you off guard today with that question, but I'm glad you're safe. And we're going to now close. Well, before I close, just remind you that next week we start. Somebody help me. What's our month of March theme? Because Mara helps with all of our programs, but
travel and tourism.
Travel and tourism. Thank you for that help there. So Travel and Tourism Month, Jen Landry from the Director of Museums for the City of Irving is going to do our program through Zoom. So you'll get a reminder. Some of you, I text the link out. So if it's easier for you to text on your phone and get in, or if it's easier for you to go in through the email, we'll make that available. Each week we have a few other people that are joining us. So hopefully gradually we'll get the majority of our members back. Lazaro is going to lead us in the four-way test. So Jordan should have a banner he can throw up there. We'll do the four-way test and we'll be adjourned. All right. So here we are. Lazaro, lead us.
All right, fellow Rotarians, if you can follow me on the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First,
is it true?
Second,
Concerned.
third,
Will it build goodwill or
Beneficial
better
friendships.
and fourth.
Will it be beneficial
Beneficial
to all concerned?
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you Rotarians. Thank you, Elaine, for joining us. Lori, thank you for the program. Invite you to join us anytime. Everybody be safe. If you do get out this weekend, enjoy the time. If you've got some time to help us with the flags, reach out to Bob or Richard or Rick or myself. We'll let you know what we need help with. God bless you. We'll see you next week. We're adjourned.
Adios.
Good meeting. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you. That was excellent. Appreciate everybody. It looks like Bob Bourgeois has joined us. Bob, that facial hair is becoming of you. It's looking good. Hold your space bar down.
Yes, it's keeps going. I don't know what to do with it anymore.
Don't know what to do with it. All right. Well,
yours looks a lot more close cropped than mine.
I just tell people I'm going to be a wise man in the Christmas play, and that you could just use that excuse if you want. All right. They always tell me I need to grow it a little bit longer is what they tell me. So maybe it means I need a little bit longer before I'm wise enough to be in the Christmas play. But well, excited to see everyone here. I don't think we have any guests today, but let's just go around and we got just a couple of minutes. So I just want maybe something interesting that's happened, or something you're going to do this weekend, or the first thing you're going to do after the shelter at home is lifted. So Patty, we're going to start with you. What do you want to do? What's new? Hit your space bar there. Go ahead.
Nothing really new. Still sorting through, going through things, trying to clear out things like everybody else. But you know what's on my mind is sitting outside on a patio, eating Mexican food and drinking a frozen margarita.
You know, I think you have a lot of people who want to join you for that. All right. Good job. Linda, what's on your to-do list? Hit your space bar or unmute. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, well, been enjoying a lot of walking and the backyard patio and just enjoying the wonderful weather and listening to the birds.
All of those are relaxing, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
Good. Hey, Lori, what have you been doing, or what do you plan to do?
Well, I've been enjoying a lot of outdoor time too. I think that that's beneficial to get outside, get some fresh air, get some sunlight. I'm even hearing some about the benefits of the UV lights to even possibly counteract COVID. So I've been focusing on getting at least 10,000 steps a day in, at least 20 minutes of cardio. So that's been going well, and I'm getting out on some new trails and things, and I'm enjoying nature and all that. But I agree with Patty. I'm looking forward to maybe some nice Mexican food and a big nice margarita to go with that when we get.
Laura Manning, you get to wake up and go to an oasis every morning, but anything new that you have planned or something?
I'm off mute. Oh, there I am. Yes, so we'll probably just do some boating. My best friend's daughter's supposed to be getting married tomorrow, and so obviously they can't have the wedding, so they're doing it in their backyard with just family, but she has set up tables out in the driveway for each family, close friend families, to one family per table to be able to watch from afar. So we may shoot down to Houston and do that.
Well, drive safe, all right? Lazaro, what have you been doing, or what do you plan to do?
Well, just lots of working. We, as you can see from the background, we turned our Irving Marathon running series that we had grown to where we were at the time we had to postpone all the events and cancel. We turned that into virtual. I think a couple of weeks before, kind of shutting everything down, I had to introduce you guys to our ad agency that we had brought on board to help us with a lot of the marketing and initiatives that we had going. So because of that, we were able to quickly transition to do everything virtual before anybody else even had the chance to. And we also had the merchandise already from the marathon. So we quickly transitioned to a virtual company for running events in the meantime. And that's allowed us to keep the team working through, we having this downtime, but also keep growing our exposure. So it's been a lot of work is what I wanted to say that we've been up to. It's we're in a good position. It's just been really fun adapting to the new changes and seeing how runners have, find a new way to still stay active even though things are happening the way they are.
Well, we're glad that you've done that virtually, and some of you may know I did my my first marathon the end of March. Lazaro, did anybody run slower than I did? Because it took me almost the whole day. 7 hours, 45 minutes, and 40 seconds. I can't imagine anybody did it any slower than that.
I haven't had a chance to take a look. Another thing that I wanted to also mention that I don't know if I shared this with you guys, but my girlfriend at the time proposed at the beginning of March, and she said yes. So now I'm engaged as well. So.
And got a wedding planned for June, is that right, or July, or?
No, we're still trying to see how things are gonna go, and when we're gonna be able to do things. So that's still kind of, we haven't had that conversation yet, but it'll be coming soon.
Okay. Well, congratulations. Thanks for all that you've done there. Chris Dobson, hit your space bar or unmute yourself. Something you've done or something you're going to do?
Well, I've been doing a lot of walking at Lively, and that's about it.
Walking at Lively. That's a great thing to do. Stay active. Hey, Neil Davidson. Anything you've been doing or going to do? Neil, you're going to have to unmute yourself, or there you go. Are you there, sir?
A comment.
All right.
I'm here too, but he does most of the talking.
Yeah, we're just along for the ride.
Well, we're glad you guys are with us. Looking forward to having you back at our meeting at the country club soon, and us all singing together, all right? Richard Raymond, anything that you've done interesting or planning to do?
Well, we're going to try to take the Thunderbird out tomorrow, and my wife, it'll be the first time she can drive it.
Now, are you referring to the Air Force Thunderbird or the Ford Thunderbird? I just wasn't sure if you were.
Now, I bought my wife a 1956 Thunderbird on eBay last month, and we got her all insured, so we're going to try to take it out.
Well, we'll have to look for you around town there, all right?
Yeah, I'll just probably be on the highway, just a short race.
All right. Well, sounds like fun. Bob Bourgeois, what have you been doing, or what do you plan to do?
Well, I've had to go back to work, so we've had a lot of work to do, and then projects around the house and walking every day. And now we have to spend, it's almost May, so we have to spend more time on flags. So somehow, I think we should be almost to 700 flag subscriptions now.
Yeah, I actually have an update on that. Lindy handed me just a moment ago. We have 738 paid flags. We have 1,018 that are pending that we've sent emails for renewal that we're still trying to get renewed. A year to date, we brought in $35,205, and just in the month of April, $10,719 been deposited for flags. So Bob and Richard and Rick Lindsay and the team that's works on that, thank you very much. And Lindy is very busy from the computer side of it every day, talking with Bill, trying to make sure we get everything updated.
Good. And I've heard from Bill Labar, who said that he is willing to work at the YMCA with the appropriate social distancing to get whatever needs to be done production-wise done. I know Rick Lindsay went there and did an inventory and cleaned up a little bit. So we'll have to get into production somehow. I guess the two challenges now will be to continue marketing to get back to 1,500, and then sleeve installation. And I think we're in good shape with Rosa and Melissa on the delivery side. I think Rosa is going to mentor Melissa, who seems to be passionate. So, and with Rick Lindsay's really been running the show. It's been tremendous.
Well, thank you for that, Bob. I know that's a lot of work, and I know you've been busy at work, so thank you for your time there. Don Jensen, anything real pressing on your schedule or something you're looking forward to doing when you can get out again?
Well, nothing really pressing. We were trying to, I've learned how to shop online for groceries, for pity's sakes. That's not my favorite thing, but at least I found that toilet paper and paper towels are extremely valuable items.
Yes.
Since they're not available. But as we come back on this, we're planning to be extremely careful, and in my opinion, they do not have the adequate testing and the things they need. So we'll try to do as much social distancing and stuff as we can until I just don't want to do something that's going to cause someone else to have a huge loss.
I understand.
So that's all we're going to try to do.
Have you learned how to squeeze the Charmin online when you order it? Is that little button there where you can squeeze it, or you hadn't figured that?
First off, you can't even find the Charmin line. I'm not really familiar with Charmin anyway, but I do know what you're talking about. Any old
commercial. Mike Kunstad, you want to jump in real quickly and tell us either what you've been doing or what you want to do once the shelter in place is lifted?
Well, first of all, I congratulate you, Robert, on running a marathon. That's something most people will never do. Regardless of the time, you did it. That's important. But we've been spending some time down here in Austin with our grandkids. We got us a place that Jerry and I are staying at, and we go watch the kids ride their bikes, perform for us. We keep our social distance, but just enjoying them whenever we can, and enjoying Austin, the beautiful weather down here that we've had. But we're anxious to get back to Irving, be back there this weekend. But we have enjoyed our stay down here, and particularly watching the grandkids do their activities. Unfortunately, the school activities are all non-existent, but they're still, like I say, they're all elementary age, so they're the fun stage to watch them do all these different things.
And I bet they love having their grandparents down there, so glad you've been able to enjoy that.
Thank you.
Margas, do you have a virtual update or anything that you would like to say, either live or by text?
How are you guys? No, I don't. I have my laptop plugged into a bigger monitor at home, so that's why you're not getting real camera. But I put some stuff in the text thing. Just we're doing a bunch of chalk art. We've got some stencils. We've got, or you can use your own creative spirit. Bring any trapped kids out. We're doing it today till 5, and then tomorrow from 10 till 5 on the sidewalks around the convention center. Next week is National Travel and Tourism Week. We're not celebrating it in the way we thought we would, but we wanted to at least put some spirited and hopefully inspiring messages out there. And then on Saturday, we're getting to host our first weekend of a project called Staff Meal. And it's a Dallas initiative with a couple of chefs from closed facilities and a lot of the providers in the industry who are providing food products. They're donating their time. We're donating our kitchen, and it's for hospitality workers in need of some meal support right now. So you can find out more at staffmeal.org. If you know anybody who's in need, please send them there. It is specific to the hospitality industry, so that's hotels, restaurants, suppliers to the industry. You go online, register, and then they give you a specific time that you can show up to pick up your food so that we can make sure we've got it all socially distanced. It's all volunteer run. They've been doing it for the last, I think 3 or 4 weeks out of a really small kitchen in our facility out at Trinity Groves, and they've managed to do 2,400 meals a week out of there. They're going to be able to do much more efficiently out of the convention center kitchen just because it's so large. And of course, unfortunately, we have the availability to do that right now because nobody's meeting or allowed to meet. So in the meantime, our staffs have been just working to do what we can to move business that was previously scheduled to continue to generate new business. I realize how much my husband and I depend on our dining out and my limited cooking to get us through every week. So looking forward to being at some of our favorite neighborhood restaurants and seeing the owners and bartenders that we love and the people we're used to sitting with at those restaurants.
Well, Laura, I sure appreciate all your help during this time with keeping our club connected and getting everybody informed regarding our meeting schedule. So my thanks to you. And
oh, and one more thing, Robert.
Get a chance to do all those fun things here in the coming weeks.